During a major state banquet, Princess Anne unexpectedly appeared at King Charles's side while Queen Camilla was placed elsewhere, creating a moment that immediately fueled speculation. Was it a routine protocol choice, a sign of growing trust in Anne, or evidence of a deeper shift within the monarchy? As royal watchers debated the meaning and public reactions intensified, the image quickly became one of the most discussed moments of the event. What was this arrangement really meant to signal? But what do you think? Was this simply royal protocol, or does it reveal something bigger about the monarchy's future? A seat nobody expected. The first sign that something unusual had happened did not come through an official announcement or palace statement. Instead, it appeared quietly within the final arrangements for a state banquet, one of the monarchy's most important ceremonial events. As preparations neared completion, attention turned to a single detail that carried enormous symbolic weight. Princess Anne was positioned directly beside King Charles, occupying the place many observers naturally associated with Queen Camilla during such a high-profile occasion. Within palace circles, that detail did not go unnoticed. State banquets are carefully planned events where every movement, appearance, and seating decision is considered long before guests arrive. These occasions are designed to project stability, confidence, and continuity. Those familiar with royal protocol often pay close attention to details the public might overlook. A seating arrangement can communicate priorities, relationships, and institutional messages without a single word being spoken. That reality made Anne's position beside the king immediately significant. As the finalized plans circulated among officials and staff, questions began spreading through royal circles. Some wondered whether the arrangement reflected a practical decision linked to the demands of the event. Others suspected there could be a deeper reason behind the choice. While no official explanation emerged, the placement created immediate curiosity because it challenged expectations. Anne's appearance at Charles's side seemed deliberate, and in royal settings, deliberate choices rarely escape scrutiny. The atmosphere surrounding the banquet gradually shifted. What should have been routine preparations became a source of quiet speculation. Observers searched for clues that might explain why Anne had been given such a prominent position. The Princess Royal had long been known for her discipline, dedication, and unwavering commitment to duty. Her reputation inside the royal family was built on decades of service rather than publicity. If Charles needed someone beside him during a highly visible event, Anne was viewed as one of the monarchy's most dependable figures. Yet the questions persisted. Was this simply a matter of protocol, or was the arrangement sending a message beyond the banquet itself? Some viewed it as evidence of Anne's growing importance during a challenging period for the monarchy. Others cautioned against reading too much into a single seating plan. Without clear answers, uncertainty filled the space where certainty would normally exist. By the time guests prepared to arrive, the focus was no longer entirely on the diplomatic purpose of the evening. Instead, attention settled on the image the public would soon see: King Charles with Princess Anne beside him. Whether intentional or not, that image carried meaning. What had truly led to this unexpected royal arrangement, and what might it reveal about the balance of influence surrounding the king? Why would a single chair arrangement trigger such intense palace whispers? Was this a temporary adjustment, a carefully planned signal, or something far more significant? As speculation grows behind closed doors, another unexpected detail emerges, one that could completely change how this royal moment is understood: the message behind the placement. What began as a simple seating arrangement was quickly becoming something far more difficult to ignore. As details from the state banquet emerged, attention shifted away from the guest list, diplomatic discussions, and ceremonial traditions. Instead, royal watchers focused on one striking image before the event had even fully unfolded. Princess Anne was positioned beside King Charles, a placement that immediately sparked conversation because of what it appeared to represent. In royal life, location often carries meaning, and few positions are more closely examined than the space nearest the monarch. State banquets are among the most important events on the royal calendar. They are carefully organized occasions where visiting leaders are welcomed with ceremony, tradition, and symbolism. Every detail is planned with precision, from the order of arrival to the seating of guests. Nothing is viewed as accidental. Because of that, observers often look beyond the formal purpose of the event and study the signals being sent through protocol. Questions appeared almost immediately. Why was Anne seated so prominently beside Charles during one of the week's most significant diplomatic occasions? Was the arrangement purely practical, or did it suggest something more meaningful behind palace walls? Royal commentators, observers, and members of the public examined the arrangement from different angles. Some believed the decision reflected Anne's long-standing reputation for reliability and duty. For decades, she had earned respect through consistent service, often carrying out engagements without seeking attention. Others were less certain. They questioned whether the placement hinted at a broader shift in how responsibilities were being managed within the monarchy. While no evidence suggested a dramatic change, uncertainty created room for speculation. Even without official explanations, symbolism has a way of shaping public perception. As debate intensified, the significance of proximity became impossible to ignore. Standing or sitting beside the monarch has long been viewed as a visible expression of confidence and support. Whether intentional or simply practical, Anne's position placed her at the center of attention before a single speech was delivered. What might have seemed like an ordinary protocol decision quickly became one of the most talked-about moments surrounding the state banquet. By the time the evening approached, the conversation had moved far beyond who was sitting where. Instead, attention turned to influence, trust, and the quiet messages the monarchy can send without saying a single word. Despite the growing number of theories, one important question remained. Why had this arrangement appeared at such a closely watched moment, when every royal gesture was certain to be analyzed? One detail continued to dominate the discussion. Was Anne's place beside Charles simply a practical decision, a subtle signal, or something far more significant? Why were experienced royal observers suddenly questioning what seemed like standard protocol? And as speculation continued to spread, what unexpected development was about to make this arrangement impossible to ignore? As discussion surrounding the state banquet continued to grow, attention gradually shifted away from the seating plan itself and toward a much bigger question. Why had Princess Anne been placed beside King Charles in the first place? The image had already sparked widespread debate among royal watchers, but many believed the answer could be found not inside the banquet hall, but in a relationship that had been built over decades. Long before guests arrived and long before photographs began circulating around the world, Anne had earned a reputation that very few members of the royal family could match. Throughout much of her life, she became known as one of the monarchy's most dependable and hardworking figures. While other royals often attracted headlines, Anne quietly built her reputation through discipline, consistency, and an unwavering commitment to duty. Year after year, she carried out engagements, represented the crown, and maintained one of the busiest schedules in the family without seeking the spotlight. That approach earned respect both inside the palace and among the public. Her value was never measured by publicity, but by reliability. King Charles understood that better than almost anyone. As brother and sister, they had spent decades navigating the extraordinary pressures of royal life together. They experienced constitutional change, family challenges, public controversies, and moments of national importance side by side. Throughout every stage of that journey, Anne developed a reputation for remaining calm and dependable, regardless of the circumstances. As observers searched for explanations behind her prominent position at the banquet, that long-standing reputation became impossible to ignore. The timing only made the story more intriguing. A state banquet is far more than a formal dinner. It is one of the monarchy's most important diplomatic occasions, where every appearance is carefully planned because the images produced often travel across the world within hours. In that environment, the people positioned closest to the monarch naturally attract enormous attention. When Anne appeared beside Charles, many people saw more than a simple seating arrangement. They saw a visible expression of trust. That interpretation gained momentum because Anne had long been viewed as a stabilizing presence during important royal moments. She was never known for dramatic public statements or attempts to dominate the spotlight. Instead, her strength came from experience, professionalism, and quiet consistency. For supporters of that theory, the explanation appeared straightforward. If Charles wanted someone dependable at his side during one of the year's most visible royal events, Anne represented the obvious choice. Not everyone accepted that conclusion quite so easily. Some observers questioned whether the arrangement carried an additional message. Was it purely about experience, or was it also intended to reflect changing priorities within the monarchy? Without an official explanation, different interpretations continued to emerge. That uncertainty only increased public fascination. Whatever the real reason, one fact remained undeniable. Anne's position beside the king encouraged people to examine her role more closely than they had in years. Whether viewed as a practical decision, a symbol of confidence, or something more complex, the arrangement highlighted the unique relationship between Charles and his sister. As attention surrounding that relationship continued to grow, it became increasingly clear that the banquet had raised questions reaching far beyond a single evening. For decades, Anne had stood where responsibility was greatest and expectations were highest. Was that lifetime of loyalty alone enough to earn this extraordinary position? Or was Charles responding to something unfolding quietly behind palace walls? And if Anne stepped forward, who quietly stepped aside, and why? While public attention remained focused on Princess Anne's unexpected place beside King Charles, another story was quietly unfolding away from the cameras. Behind palace walls, the days leading up to the state banquet had become unusually demanding. The event carried enormous diplomatic importance and required extensive planning, coordination, and attention to detail. Although the public would only see the polished final result, the week beforehand placed increasing pressure on those closest to the king. State banquets are among the most carefully organized occasions in royal life. They bring together visiting heads of state, senior officials, and representatives from around the world. Every detail must work flawlessly because the event reflects not only on the monarch but on the institution itself. As preparations intensified, schedules became busier, briefings became more frequent, and expectations continued to rise. For King Charles, this was far more than another public appearance. It was a major international engagement requiring complete focus and stability. During periods like these, trusted support naturally becomes more valuable than ever. Royal duties involve far more than the public ever sees. Behind every official photograph are planning meetings, protocol reviews, security discussions, and countless decisions that must be made before guests even arrive. During major occasions, dependable people become essential. That reality led some observers to view Anne's position through a different lens. Rather than seeing it as a symbolic statement, they believed it reflected practical necessity. Princess Anne had spent decades establishing herself as one of the hardest-working members of the royal family. Her discipline, efficiency, and professionalism were widely respected. She consistently handled demanding schedules without seeking recognition or attention. During such a demanding week, those qualities carried considerable importance. As the banquet drew closer, that explanation seemed increasingly plausible. Preparations required precision, and palace planners naturally tried to eliminate unnecessary uncertainty. Many therefore wondered whether Anne's role had expanded simply because she represented reliability during one of the king's busiest weeks. The question seemed entirely reasonable given her long history of supporting the monarchy through changing circumstances. Yet the absence of any official explanation continued to fuel speculation. If the arrangement was purely practical, why had it attracted so much immediate attention? Why did so many people see deeper meaning behind what could have been a logistical decision? Those questions kept the debate alive. Some believed people were reading too much into a carefully managed seating plan. Others argued that within royal life, practical decisions and symbolic messages often exist together. A single choice can serve several purposes at once. As the final preparations moved forward, the atmosphere surrounding the banquet became even more intriguing. Anne's place beside Charles could represent trust, experience, dependable support, or perhaps all three. Whatever the explanation, one thing had become increasingly clear. The story was no longer simply about where people were seated. It had become a much broader conversation about who King Charles relies on most when pressure quietly begins to build. As expectations continued rising behind palace walls, one question refused to disappear. Why was Anne suddenly becoming so indispensable? Were growing diplomatic demands revealing a quiet shift inside the monarchy? And what private decision would soon place her even closer to the king than anyone expected? As speculation surrounding the state banquet continued to spread, the conversation gradually began to change. At first, most attention focused on the surprising image of Princess Anne seated beside King Charles. But as observers looked more closely, many found themselves asking a different question. What was it about Anne that made her presence feel so significant? The answer seemed to lie not in a single event, but in the influence she had built over decades. Unlike many public figures, Anne had never relied on visibility to establish authority. Her influence came from something quieter and, in many ways, more powerful. Throughout her life as a working royal, Princess Anne developed a reputation for discipline, commitment, and carrying out her duties without seeking recognition. While public attention often shifted toward larger personalities and more dramatic royal stories, Anne remained focused on work. She attended engagements, represented the crown, and maintained a demanding schedule year after year. That consistency became one of her defining qualities and shaped how she was viewed inside the monarchy. The contrast was difficult to ignore. In an institution often associated with public appearances and symbolism, Anne's strength came from avoiding unnecessary attention rather than seeking it. She rarely dominated royal headlines, yet her standing within the family remained remarkably stable. For many observers, that suggested influence inside the monarchy was not always connected to publicity. Sometimes it was built through reliability, experience, and trust earned over time. As debate over the banquet arrangement continued, this perspective gained momentum. Some commentators argued that Anne's position beside King Charles reflected the value of those qualities. They pointed to her long record of service and reputation for handling responsibilities without creating distraction. In their view, the image from the banquet was not simply about where she sat. It was about what she represented. Her presence conveyed steadiness during a period when the monarchy faced constant public scrutiny. Yet not everyone interpreted the situation the same way. Some questioned whether observers were projecting deeper meaning onto a ceremonial decision. Others argued that royal symbolism naturally invites interpretation. Within the monarchy, appearances often carry messages beyond their practical purpose. The more people examined Anne's role, the more important she seemed to become. She was no longer viewed simply as the king's sister attending a state event. Instead, she increasingly appeared to be one of the institution's most dependable figures, whose influence rested on responsibility rather than status. That distinction resonated with many who followed royal affairs. By this stage, the narrative surrounding the banquet had evolved. What began as curiosity about an unexpected seating arrangement had become a broader discussion about influence inside the monarchy. Anne's quiet approach to royal life was receiving renewed attention, and her role appeared larger than many had previously realized. Whether intentional or not, the banquet had highlighted a form of influence that rarely demanded attention, yet proved impossible to ignore. What if real influence inside the royal circle has little to do with visibility? How did Anne's quiet discipline begin changing perceptions at the highest level? And what moment changed how others measured influence within the institution? The moment the state banquet began, the story moved beyond palace walls. What had started as speculation among royal observers suddenly became visible to everyone. Photographs emerged, video clips circulated, and images from the event spread across news platforms and social media within hours. At the center of those images stood one detail many people immediately noticed. Princess Anne was positioned beside King Charles during one of the week's most significant royal occasions. What had previously been discussed as a possibility was now something the public could see for themselves. The reaction was swift. For many viewers, the arrangement appeared unusual enough to spark immediate questions. State banquets are carefully choreographed events where appearances matter. Every movement is planned, and every public image carries symbolic weight. Because of that, observers often examine photographs for clues about relationships, priorities, and the direction of the monarchy. As images continued to circulate, interpretations quickly followed. Some commentators focused on Anne's long-standing reputation for duty and reliability, arguing her position reflected trust built over decades of service. Others questioned whether the arrangement hinted at something larger. While no official statement suggested a major shift within the royal family, the visual impact of the moment encouraged deeper analysis. News outlets highlighted Anne beside Charles, while online discussions explored what the arrangement might represent. Some people viewed it as a practical decision linked to the demands of a major diplomatic event. Others believed it reflected the growing importance of experienced working royals during a period of continued change. The lack of a clear explanation allowed multiple interpretations to exist. What made the situation especially compelling was the power of the image itself. Unlike reports or commentary, photographs require no explanation. People could see the arrangement directly and reach their own conclusions. Every new image seemed to reinforce the same question. Why had Princess Anne become such a central figure during this particular event? As debate intensified, attention gradually shifted toward the future. Some observers wondered whether the banquet reflected a temporary decision for one occasion. Others questioned whether it offered a glimpse of broader changes within the monarchy. Those questions remained unanswered, but their persistence revealed how closely royal symbolism is watched. Even a single image can trigger discussions far beyond the event itself. The palace remained focused on the banquet's official purpose, yet public attention continued drifting toward the arrangement that had captured so much interest. The more people discussed the photographs, the more significance they seemed to carry. By the end of the evening, the story was no longer limited to royal protocol or banquet seating. It had become a public conversation about trust, visibility, and influence within the monarchy. The image everyone noticed may have revealed more than anyone expected while still leaving its biggest questions unanswered. As images from the banquet spread, public debate ignited across every platform. But what were people really seeing? What message did the arrangement silently send? And why did officials appear unsettled by the reaction that followed? The formal ceremonies ended, but the discussion surrounding Princess Anne's place beside King Charles showed no sign of disappearing. The event had fulfilled its diplomatic purpose. Guests had attended, photographs had been taken, and official duties had been carried out. Yet long after the evening concluded, attention remained fixed on one image. For many observers, the most memorable part of the banquet was not a speech or ceremony. It was Anne standing beside the king during one of the week's most closely watched royal occasions. What made the moment so powerful was its simplicity. There had been no dramatic announcement and no public explanation. Nevertheless, the image continued generating discussion because of what it appeared to symbolize. Throughout the monarchy's history, proximity to the sovereign has often carried significance. The debate gradually expanded beyond the banquet itself. Questions emerged about the future roles of senior royals and how responsibilities might be shared during a period of continued change. Some believed the arrangement highlighted the growing importance of experienced royals who have spent decades serving the institution. Others argued it was simply a temporary decision tied to one event. Neither interpretation could be confirmed, and that uncertainty kept the conversation alive. Princess Anne's reputation became central to those discussions. Her long record of service, commitment, and dependable presence gave many people reason to view the moment as meaningful. For those observers, her position beside Charles felt less like coincidence and more like trust earned over a lifetime. Whatever the real reason behind Princess Anne's place beside King Charles, one thing is certain. A single royal moment has sparked a much bigger conversation about trust, duty, and the future of the monarchy. What do you think this seating arrangement really meant? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next royal story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.